Good evening, folks, or good afternoon, as the case may be. My name is Bob Marshall, Chairman of the Lakeville Cable Advisory Committee, and we are opening our January 3rd, 22nd meeting. In accordance with the provisions allowed by Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, the January 3rd, 2022 public meeting of the Lakeville Cable Advisory Committee will be held remotely as we are now. However, to view this meeting in progress, please go to facebook.com/LakeCAM. You do not need a Facebook account to view the meeting. This meeting will be recorded and available to be viewed at a later date at http://www.lakecam.tv/. Hey, Bill.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Good to see you. Hey, Bob.
And to you. Okay, we've just opened the meeting, and because you have to go in a little bit, Bill, we're going to take things out of order. And the first item will be a preliminary general discussion of our approach with Verizon. And it says advice from our attorney concerns. Bill, one of the things that I've been going back and forth with Neil about is when to begin. As you know, I don't like to leave things to the last minute. Neil tells me that that's not last minute. That's not terminology he would use, but waiting till much later, like maybe the third or fourth quarter of this year, before we actually open up. And that worries me. And he referred in an email to me, I think I sent it to you guys. I've got it here if we want to share it. That you're kind of used to this and might be able to explain. And I was going to ask you anyway. So what's your take on this?
I agree with you, Bob, that more time than getting the license earlier in the process gives us time that we need to adequately review and negotiate and prepare. I agree with you. There is a reference to many towns have gone with getting it around 6 months before expiration. And he mentioned, I think he meant, he was sort of implying I'm aware of this.
Yeah.
And it's true because many towns, unfortunately, don't have a choice because they start so late. So starting late, they'll like start 12 months out. They'll spend a couple of months till they even have an ascertainment hearing and have any ascertainment records. And then there's only 6 months left. So we end up acquiescing to that, but we don't like it. We make do, and I feel we've been lucky to kind of eke out decent licenses, but it's very not in our best interests. So we should ask.
You would not recommend Neil's approach, Verizon's approach? Okay.
No, I would point out that those towns that have gone with getting the license in 6 months, that I've had to acquiesce to that, but I don't think it serves their best interests. I think they need more time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, there is a procedure to get it earlier, by the way.
Okay.
You know, because we usually bang it out through the informal renewal rather than the formal. But we could point out that, and I often do, that our ability to do it informally depends on having enough time to do it informally, because 6 months, if you wanted to reserve your rights for the formal process,
which I believe we did in our initial response.
Right, we did. The way we set up the hearing was noting we're preserving our right, because to do the formal process and to reserve your rights with credibility, you have to be in a position to issue an RFP, because that's the last step of the formal process, and that has to go out 5 months before expiration. That's why like the 6 months has always been like, the least acceptable amount. If we have 6 months, we'll look it over and we'll decide whether we're close enough. And then we'll be able to see if we have to get out an RFP by 5 months. But when they say 6 months from expiration, that's only 1 month away from the RFP issuance deadline. It's not 6 months, it's 1 month away.
Right.
And then when 6 months, when they send it to you, they usually leave the financial dollar amounts blank with a notation saying, we'll discuss the financials with you. So you don't even have a full license.
And I would suspect, Bill, that if they're forced to give us what they would call an early RFP, request for proposal, that they would throw everything in but the kitchen sink, and maybe even the kitchen sink too, just to CYA.
Right. That's why there's one issue is when you get the draft license. Another issue is when you start the informal negotiations. Now, I would take the position, one compromise approach is that, well, we're willing to talk to you about getting a document 6 months beforehand if we firmed up the financial commitments, by 10 months beforehand. So, because it's only by knowing that they're going to, sometimes we'll have them firm up the financial commitments and their level playing field clause approach before they give us the draft. So that way, when we get the draft, we know we're already sort of taking care of most of our needs because we've got in their financial commitments. They'll affirm that will match the incumbents' percentages. They'll affirm that we'll use level playing field clause that they did in this town or that town, so we can look at it and see that it's. Remember how many variations of level playing field clause Comcast?
I do.
Verizon has the same thing. Some are good, some are bad. So if we take care of that, so you can point out, we're putting aside the question of when we get the draft, but noting that 6 months is not enough time for us. A more pressing question for us is starting informal negotiations way in advance of getting the draft. So when we get the draft, it will reflect our informal negotiations. Those are two separate things, negotiations and document. I think the negotiations are just as important, if not more important, because they'll tell you, this is the money and this is the level playing field. And then when we get the draft, it's not as big a deal because they've already committed to that, and So now, if we went into the formal process now, we could issue after a little ascertainment, because when you issue the RFP, you can have a date. You must give us a draft within 5 weeks. So we could have an RFP out if they don't compromise with us on the informal negotiations and force them to give us a draft. We could include in the RFP our own draft. So there are lots of different ways to do it. I just did a renewal with them in Holliston. I should send you the Holliston license. It's only a couple of months old. It's not a good example because they have much more capital than almost any town I know, because Comcast had agreed to so much capital 100 years ago. And when Verizon came in, it matched them. So they're at an escalated level. But we could almost change the name of the town, change the dollar amounts to correspond to the Comcast amounts, and have our own draft license too to expedite the process. Not that they would respond when we want. If it's a part of a formal RFP, they would have to give us some kind of response within the specified time frame. I like to go through the informal process first, and I like to use that as a leverage point to get them to accelerate and say, if you don't give us better timetables, we'll have no choice but to go to the RFP. They'll probably then say, we don't care, you do the RFP, have a party, but sometimes that's what gets them off the dime. I think we're going to have to schedule a phone call with them.
Yeah, right.
discuss this stuff. That's the bottom line.
Tom, you had a question?
No, I'm just saying that sounds good. I think we need to get through some of the questions we have for Bill here before he has to leave.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Bill. I don't want to say I'm happy to hear that, but I'm glad that we're in agreement that is the better way to go, not to let things wait. It
Yeah.
already is. I mean, May 5th of this year May 4th is the expiration date. So, February, March, April, we got 15 months as it is now. So tick-tock, we know what happened with Comcast. Okay, although I have to say that my dealings with Neil, he has been very good at getting back to me.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. He's not deciding any of this stuff.
Of course. We understand this, all above his pay grade.
Right. But when it comes to local franchise equipment, and he's fantastic. On this stuff, the law firm is telling him what to do. Right.
Speaking of a law firm, guys, I just want to, and actually for anyone who might be listening, Neil is not going to be, it's not going to be like with Comcast where we were just dealing with Mike. Neil is going to have at least one, if not two, other attorneys joining us in this process. So I'm not sure what role he's going to be playing in this. And I don't know how like the Comcast process this will be. This is actually, I was going to say it's new to me. It's not new to me. Back in 2008, when we first bargained with Verizon, it was dicey, to say the least, back in the day. But
I know.
Be that as it may. Okay.
But also, they're bringing in new attorneys. I just heard this. When did I call? On like December 30th, I sent an email to the two main guys in Massachusetts the last couple of years, Paul Train and John Harrington.
Yeah.
They've been handling all the renewals. And so I was bugging Paul saying, one of my towns needs a license already. They're expiring in late June. And I had asked him for it like in October or November. And he kept saying, I've got all this end of the year work. I have end of the year work. I'll do it like first thing in January, if not sooner. So I sent him an email. We talked and he said, I'll get it to you in early January. So now, so we have a 6 months, but it was like begrudgingly.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, okay, I can deal. It was just like, I was just tolerating it because he was pleading all these Christmas things and whatnot. But he also said they're so overloaded right now that they're going to be assigning renewals to new people. So that's another reason we may want to say we want more time, because we may be dealing with people we haven't dealt with before.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, just jotting a note here.
In my opinion, that's my opinion.
Okay.
Time is crucial. Time is crucial.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And one of the things that they don't realize, okay, let's say, for example, we were meeting with them today. And we said, okay, we want to have a meeting a week from today. Well, I've got to, develop the agenda. I've got to make sure it gets posted correctly in a timely fashion. And I've made mistakes posting before, and the town clerk has let me know, and so on and so forth. And if you're not posted 48 hours ahead of time, it's problematic. It's not just something you snap your fingers and make it happen. That's my point. So 6 months can evaporate in no time. All right, I think we pretty much, resolved that issue, that you think I should push for more time. And I guess I'll rattle the saber of formal process if we can't get something reasonable for time.
Right, but also, so those are 2 points. The main, most say, but his reference, I'm looking at it. We provide a draft renewal license approximately 6 months prior to the expiration. Totally separate from that is we should plan for separate from the document, we need to talk to them at least, now, just to have a preliminary introductory conversation.
Well,
We can say now or no later than 12 months to have our first negotiation
right,
session.
he indicated in that email, or one that he and I exchanged earlier, I think it was that latest email, that he's not opposed to having a conversation with me and so forth. But I get the distinct impression that he's being told by people above his pay grade, we can't get to Lakeville until we're ready to get to Lakeville, which kind of confirms what you mentioned.
Right.
So that's a
Right.
concern.
Separately, we should prepare what we want to ask them for. So at that first meeting, we can lay it all out. The percentages, the capital.
As a matter of fact, you know, the
okay.
document that I sent you,
Yeah.
with those 40 some odd issues, I mean, that's where I would,
What issues?
this document here,
I don't think I saw that, but
you know, well,
when did you
okay,
send that? When did you send that?
oh, God, I don't know. It probably, I think it was, what, Friday, maybe?
I missed- I
Thursday,
think-
Friday, somewhere around
December
there.
31st.
Thank you,
Friday.
December 31st.
I don't have that one handy.
All right, it's an item where I've gone over the license section by section. And there are 47 questions
Let me
I
check.
have.
Oh, my God. Let me check my index.
Okay,
Hold on, Marshall.
I just resent it to him.
thank you, Jose. I'm always reluctant to do that because I'm afraid I'm going to lose this screen and not get back to it.
Draft agenda. Verizon questions. I printed out the PEG funding. I didn't see the questions one. Huh. Here it is.
Yeah.
I'm just going to print it out now.
Yeah. I've got it here. We can share it, but I'm a little reluctant to do that in a fully public meeting, lest they be peeking over our shoulder.
Right.
I think,
You're not required to record this, by the way.
Yeah, we are.
I think we are, Bill.
By who requires it?
The current emergency open meeting law until,
Wait, hold on. I'm walking over to the printer. I'll be right back.
it's not that we are required to record, it's required that we share it live.
Wait, you may want to go live, but why do you have to record it?
To put it on the air on our cable channel.
Right, and the state wording that I read at the beginning of the meeting, Bill, says that this meeting will be held remotely. However, to view this meeting in progress, please go to facebook.com, blah, blah, blah. And you don't need a Facebook account. This meeting will be recorded and available to be viewed at a later date at www.lakecam.tv. And that's the language, the state language that I was given by the town that I'm supposed to read.
Right, I don't think that's state, that may be all right, well, we can save that for another day, because generally
We're also
internal
live.
committee
now
meetings to
on TV.
discuss, in the future, committee meetings to discuss negotiation positions are often not recorded, and that's okay. As long as, you follow the open meeting law and give the kinds of
All right,
notices.
I'm gonna need chapter and verse where we can confirm that, because I agree, negotiating in public is not a good idea.
Well,
It's
then they
never
have to
good.
be open, but you don't have to record them, which creates other problems.
I see. Okay. All right,
And
well,
that's okay. There's nothing to hide. It's just consistent with good negotiations techniques. It helps us get better deals from Verizon and Comcast, because when they feel they're being recorded, they're not at liberty to speak as much, because what they say could be on YouTube or Facebook, where their bosses watch them agree to something. We cut them more slack and they're less inhibited when they're public, everything's public, but not recorded when it comes to negotiations.
Bill, at the moment, the governor's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law require open meetings that are held virtually to be available to the public.
Right, that means they can watch it. They don't have to give them a recording.
As
You
soon
can
as
make
we
it,
put
just
on-
make it, all you
Bill,
have to do is make it live by posting the link. That's how it's done. If they want to be, have
Well,
it available.
Bill, I don't want to bat this back and forth.
All right, but I'm very,
We're-
I'm sure, I know this, I'm sure of it.
Okay, well.
You're making
we'll-
it available to the public by doing it live via Zoom.
once you put
That's
it
all-
on Facebook Live, it's recorded by Facebook.
Right, you don't have to put it on Facebook. You just put it on Zoom and then you meet the state
Bill,
requirement.
Let's
Yeah.
let this issue go. This is
Okay.
the way every board in our town has been doing it, including the Board of Selectmen. And I am not going to move away from that at this point. So
Okay.
let's leave that issue as it is. On this list, which you haven't read yet, and to be honest with you, I don't really want to get too deeply into this since you haven't had a chance to read it. I'm going to just cover some things generally. The first item, the HD channel, Jose, it's already included in our existing Verizon license, which I was quite frankly surprised to relearn. And is there a reason you can think of why we haven't requested it?
We've requested it and we received it. We're running a HD channel on Verizon right now,
Forgive
2130,
me, I
which
did
is
not know that.
which is a simulcast of our education channel.
Okay, thank you. And how about item number 2? I want you to think about this, guys. Is requesting an electronic channel guide practical? You don't have to respond because, we don't want to get into negotiations here. But we had our experience with Comcast. And so I asked that question.
Verizon does more on this than Comcast. Not much more, but they will agree to language saying, give you most favored nation status. If they do it somewhere else in Massachusetts, they'll do it here. Not saying they will do it in Mass, but they
Right.
do agree. It's nice to have that in there.
Yeah, all right. So to throw it in is not out of.
Right. As a most favored nations clause, I think they've agreed to.
Okay. Third item, which I know we're beating our heads against the wall, but I at least want to bring it up for discussion.
No, you
And
should
that
ask for
is-
it, Bob. Ask for the 10 years.
Absolutely, no question about it, because to be honest with you, coming back to this every 5 years gets to be tedious and
Right.
expensive.
You got to ask for the 10 years. It's one of the most important things to towns. I'm not
Okay.
saying they're going to agree.
Understood.
Having been through this process, they
Right.
should know very politely, not
Yeah, of course.
Not
Everything's gonna
adversarially.
be polite.
that's one of the things we want. What if they change their policy somewhere else and we
Right.
haven't asked for it?
Right. Next item, I'm gonna skip over 4 and go to 5. The gross annual revenue funding is presently at 4%. We've got to have a matching figure with Comcast, in my opinion, at least. And something that was in the license several times, I think I read somewhere in here that the 50 cents per subscriber that normally goes straight to the town and not to LakeCAM is part of that 5% maximum that
It's part of the 5% max, but it's not part of the 4.75 unless it says so.
okay, but if the 50 cent per sub put them over 5%, then they could what? Recoup
They stop
money?
at 5%.
Yeah.
They'd
okay.
have to pay that 50 cents per sub. That won't take them over 5%. It'll get them very close. In combination with courtesy accounts, it might get them over. But I'm sure
think-
Verizon has very few courtesy accounts.
Okay. All right, well, I just wanted to throw that, That appears, by the way, guys, several times in my list of questions. I apologize for that, but it came up in different sections. So
Right, these are
I just-
great questions. These are good.
Thank you. Let's see. Let's skip down to number 8. There was language in there.
Wait, for number 5, I have to say one other thing,
Go ahead.
because it raises a bunch of questions. If you were saying since Comcast have 4.75%, but they're at 4%, we want them to match.
Right.
But they're offering 0.7% for capital funding
Understood.
that Comcast isn't
In
doing.
addition to their flat rate, they've got the
In
flat
addition
rate.
to a flat rate.
Right.
So if we were to say, you have to go up to the Comcast 4.75%, they might say, well, we already have it. We just call the other 0.7 capital.
And that's something we as a committee are going to have to decide whether it's acceptable to us or not when we make our recommendation to the
Right.
select.
You might want to decide that now, because under the existing license, Verizon license, it says if the incumbent is paying a different amount for annual funding, we can request that Verizon go up to Comcast's amount even now. Before not under the renewal, under the existing, but it might not make sense if they're just going to come back and say we're already doing it because we pay the point, we close the gap. with the
Yeah, I
0.7.
hear your point, Bill, but okay. And I think we'll.
We should discuss that on the phone.
We will. Yeah, we'll discuss that further at another time.
Very interesting issue,
Yeah,
because it'd have a lot of concerns if we brought them up to 4.75 and then they had the 0.7, then they'd be, instead of us bringing them to Comcast level, we'd bring them above the Comcast level, and they have level playing field clause, so it might not work.
yeah, and I don't imagine it's going to help us moving forward with the renewal license at all.
Right.
So,
And,
Tom,
well, one of those figures is based on subscriber numbers and the other one isn't. So you might better off leave it the way it is.
Right.
well, the subscriber numbers, the 50 cents per sub, that is a different amount of money that never goes to LakeCAM. That goes to the Board of Selectmen. It's a fee that the state requires go to the
I think, Tom, you
selectmen's
mean
budget.
the 82,500 capital.
I'm referring to another figure. Yeah.
The 82,500 capital over 5 years.
Right.
Verizon pays 2 capital streams, 0.7 plus 82,500.
And those are fixed amounts.
Yeah,
So we should not,
that's beneficial when they're losing subs.
yeah, because if subscriber numbers dwindle, you're going to
Oh,
still be getting the other funds at the old agreement.
The 0.7% is a variable number based on the
Gross
annual
revenue.
revenue. So that one is variable. There is a fixed
Oh, it
number,
is.
16.5. There is a 0.7%, which is variable capital.
All right. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Just.
yeah, no, again, Tom, I'm glad you brought that up. That's what this meeting's all about. Okay, item number 8. There's language like this throughout the license that drives me crazy. That they can, that we agree to X unless it's the service is not commercially reasonable. Drives me crazy. Is that something you see in a lot of licenses, Bill?
Unfortunately, yes. And I had a town which this was the last issue, held up the renewal for months.
I can
And that-
imagine.
One selectman got really upset about it. But you know what? They proved to us that they had wired like 99.8% of the town, and the other like combined with Comcast. So while he said he was been hung up on it from the initial license, when he realized that renewal time, there wasn't that much to still do. They let it slide. They wanted to get the renewal over with.
Okay. Tom, help
I
me
mean,
out. Where's,
are you aware of neighborhoods that don't have service or anything?
I don't have 3.1 in front of me here. Is that what it's about?
Yeah.
There are some
Oh, yeah.
some communities that don't have cable access. One of
Oh,
them
wait,
is
3 I apologize. 3.2 is about making it, oh, wait a minute. 3.1 says they'll continue to offer cable service to all residential. So, yeah, this is the service area. Yes, that's what it's about. Who gets it? But they say everybody, though. That's a pretty good clause, by the way. They
even
always
with the,
stick, they always stick
even
that.
with the service is not commercially reasonable.
Yeah, they always throw that in. I mean, I shouldn't say always because I haven't, you never know. Licenses change every 6 months for them. I haven't gone back and looked at this clause in over a year and a half, really. I don't know. But that's
All
my
right, well-
recollection. That's my recollection.
All
That
right,
we
well,
fought for
that's
it. which-
one. We're
Yeah.
not going to settle that today, Bill, but that is one that,
Keep it open. You have every
Yes.
right.
Bill, that's why I brought it up, to see what you and the rest of the guys thought of it. Let's not hammer it to death today. Item number 9 about the free drops, even though I'm sorry, go ahead, Walter.
Bill, was that a problem in Houston's renewal?
They felt that they would just have to hold their nose and go with it.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, the next item, number 9. I think I would like to do all we can to maintain free Verizon free drops into public buildings, despite the outcome of the Comcast license. Just my thought.
They agree to the language. They just say if it takes us over 5%, then we're going to have to do something about it.
Okay.
That's
Well,
different than the Comcast approach.
right.
I heard Comcast. I have to find out what's going on with Comcast on this. All right.
Speaking of Comcast, something important. I've heard nothing since the selectman sent you the license. You scanned it and sent it to Mike. Have
You
you
should
heard
send him an
anything?
email, ask him if it's in process.
All right, hang on.
I bet that's been on my mind too.
Thank you. I just had to write that note down.
Yeah.
All right.
That's important. That's important. We got to do that.
Of course it is. Jose, you've already answered number 10. Thank you. Tom, help me. Where else does it say we want Bill to explain something?
Well, we've got number 34.
Hang on, we've got 16.
Oh, I can start at this. Okay. Let me see. We've got, well, several of the things that you noted as questioning that we never get this and we never get that.
Yeah,
Have
there are a
we
number of
requested-
reports.
Have we requested any of those things? Because it says if requested. and
Well,
only
some of them
once
say
per
if
quarter.
requested and some of them don't, as I recall.
Well,
I'll have
all
to
the
go
ones
back.
I looked at said, I read them and they all say if requested and only
Okay.
once per quarter. So those probably can be taken off the list.
Then that may be my error, Tom,
Yeah.
in including them here.
Well, I spent the morning reading through these things, so.
Yeah, well, I spent a couple of days. Let's skip to number 16 then.
Okay.
Section 5.2.4, recovery of costs. I've written, Bill, please explain this to us. Does this have to do with the FCC ruling and they're recovering anything beyond 5%?
No, this is from before that. This has to do with they're allowed to pass through all franchise related costs.
Okay,
Pass through.
yeah.
And I itemize it on the bill as a franchise fee or cost. Technically, capital is not a franchise fee, but it's called a franchise related cost, FRC.
Okay,
This is the law. That's the law.
all right.
And
All
it's
right.
important. It helps us to have it in the license, actually, Because then when they do it, the selectmen can't say, what? They passed this through.
Right,
I've
right,
seen that
right.
happen in some little companies before they used to put in the selectmen go, what, are you gonna pass this? And it helps the committee because the committee says, no, that's the deal. Everything gets passed.
And that's the law. We have little
That's the
control over
law.
that.
That's the
All right,
law.
item 17. This came up as I read through about if we have a local producer filming a program, it says the local producers assume liability for programs. Is that usual, Bill?
Yes.
Jose, is that
Yeah.
usual to your experience?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
And it's a practice access centers should, in the interest of the access corporations, to have a user form where they say, yes, we're going to use your equipment and we accept your guidelines and we assume responsibility for our own
Right.
acts. It helps you. What if they drop a camera on some kid's head?
Right.
least that-
And also I don't think Jose wants to be a censor. I mean, somebody that's going to approve content, because then I think you're kind of prohibited from doing that, aren't you?
Unless
For
it's
public
obscene.
access, we're prohibited. We're not prohibited.
Bill, hang on. Jose wants to respond. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, the FCC has addressed this a long time ago. Unless it's obscene, we have to run it. We do have discretion as to when we run it and how often we run it.
But there are standards for obscenity and things like that.
It's the same one the Supreme Court ruled.
Right. But that's for public access.
Hmm.
We can regulate programming if it's an educational access channel or a government access channel. It's totally different. Those are not open forum the way public access channel is.
Correct.
Okay. Section number 21, section 7.1. This has to do with the customer service office. The language is a little bit looser than I'm comfortable with, but we've already been over this with Comcast. Would you read that section, Bill, 7.1?
Yeah.
And give us your take on it.
Say, shall be after January 22nd, 2022.
That's today, yeah. I knew this was in there.
And for the remainder of the term, the licensee shall operate in reasonable proximity. That's what very common language, that's what they do. Which was
Yeah, and that's pretty much what Comcast
right.
threw in there, much to our chagrin. Although I pretty much got Mike to promise, almost in blood, not quite, that Comcast had no intention of moving elsewhere. But we don't have that. Right now, there's language in that section, I believe, that refers to Verizon providing a mailer for things to be returned. And that kind of language really, I find objectionable. But again, we're not gonna solve this today, but these are issues that I want to address. And it's mentioned 21A and so forth. We can skip now to 22. Again, language that bothers the heck out of me. Verizon reps must identify by name when answering the phone. Paragraph 2, in my opinion, negates their requirement to have a personal response. And their service, in my limited Verizon experience, is questionable at best. I refer Jose to not this past December of 2021, but 2020, when there were people all over town. Granted, much of their complaint had to do with phone and internet and so forth, which is not in our purview, but many of those same people had their cable services down during that time. And it was only because I happened to see it on Lakeville Helping Lakeville on Facebook that I called Neil, and he first of all said, Bob, you realize that much of this has to do with internet and phone, and that's not your purview. And I said, I realize that, but I want to make you aware of it. And he put the complaint in where it needed to be, and it got fixed within a few days. And people were calling Verizon services and saying online that they weren't getting anywhere. And I know, Tom, you've had your own experiences with
I have a
Verizon
question about
service.
that, if you don't mind, quick.
Go ahead.
We talked about this when we had the windstorm and a lot of people lost internet for like 5 days or whatever, like we did.
Right.
And I questioned whether, customers were going to be able to get a credit for that time when, we weren't able to get service. And you brought to my attention that it was like an act of God or whatever.
Force
and-
majeure, yeah.
My big question is, let's say we had a tornado and the poles came down in the whole town and we had no service for a month. Is this saying that the contract still requires
That's a
us to pay?
good question, Tom. I don't know. Bill, what say you?
Nobody would ever expect somebody to pay for something that they didn't get,
Right.
regardless
Bill,
of the cost.
what's your thought?
Which part of the question? Say again.
The length
What
of
time?
time when outages would kick in to actually require a cable company to give a refund. Let's say they couldn't give cable for 7 days because of a storm.
They're supposed to
fault.
give you a refund if it's 24 hours or longer.
Well, that's what I thought, but there's a clause in there. What did you call it, Bob?
Force majeure?
Yes.
All right, let's clarify that, Bill.
Yeah, that's your Latin.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting question
Yeah.
because the statute says they have to do it if it's 24 hours or more.
That's the way I
Shouldn't say-
read it.
And then force majeure gives them an out if it's like an act of God, which they can say is like a storm. But I don't
But
think
how
they
long?
would-
Suppose it's 7 days, suppose it's a month, suppose it's a year, Bill. No one
Right.
would expect that they should get, that Verizon should get paid for something that long, would they?
No, they can't make you keep paying when you're not getting service for that long.
Okay, well, that's another issue that we're going to have to clarify. Would you make a
All right.
note on that?
Yeah, what number is that at?
Let's see, you know what? I'm not sure
22.
what. Say it again,
Was it 22?
Walter?
Was it 22? I'm sorry.
Item
7.2.1
7.2.1.
or around there.
Yeah, 7 point, yeah.
All right,
Yeah, it's the
All right, so-
22nd question,
question,
22.
All right, Bill, do you have to get going to your dentist appointment?
yeah, I would say like in about 3 minutes, I'm gonna go.
Okay, all right.
They're
Um,
upstairs on the 6th floor of my building, but I know I'm supposed to call. They have a COVID I have to do a whole thing, you don't want, so I gotta
Yeah.
get up there, yeah. All right.
Okay.
So does force majeure apply to?
Yeah, for how long do they get to
Nothing.
use force majeure? What
Out.
period of time?
All right.
And a number of these where I say we don't receive these reports, need to go
Right.
back and reread those
Yeah,
sections.
this is an
Uh,
area where they've changed their language a lot, this customer protection stuff. So you're gonna wish the language got even worse, in my opinion.
Gee, I'm shocked. Shocked. Okay, let's skip down
30
to
there's
item
34,
number. Walter, you have a question?
34?
Okay, I wanted to start with 31.
Go ahead, 31.
7.4.5.
Oh, yeah,
Verizon. Excuse me?
yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, this is one of the things that got worse. This wasn't, yeah, you have a 5-year-old license. They started doing this.
Right,
It-
I mean, the language, Verizon shall meet the standard from 7.4.4 above 90% of the time
Oh,
of the calls that it completes the service. I mean, I don't know what the heck that means.
7.4. Less.
0.5.
Point, what is
You know
it,
what?
7.4
0.5.
what?
0.5.
7.4.4 and 7.4.5. All right, Bill, we're gonna stop here.
Okay.
In terms of our experience, talking with you.
All
so
right.
you can get to your appointment. You and I will talk some more.
Okay, good.
And.
All right,
I've got-
folks, have a happy new year. Be careful
Yes.
out there.
You too. Stay healthy, Bill.
I
Thank
know
you.
it's, see you later.
Oh. Take care.
Good seeing you.
Same here. Okay. Now, guys, I'm gonna suggest that because I've got to do some reviewing here and clean up this stuff that I sent out. My apologies for, I think, missing some items. Hang on, I gotta get back to our agenda. Okay. Something we haven't done for a while, or at least I think since last spring, and I wanted to bring up, and that is the issue of reorganizing our committee. At present, I'm chair, Walter is secretary, Tom, I think you're vice chair. And we had a subcommittee for negotiation and so forth. What is your pleasure? I think it's something, I always bring this up at least once a year, and I throw it out there.
As far as I'm concerned, Bob, you've got your contacts with the Verizon and Comcast established, and I think you did a great job, keeping track of who handled what. Personally, I think I would like to maintain the status quo. I mean,
I concur.
Okay, that's fine with me, but I just always feel, I think most committees reorganize at least once a year, or they have the opportunity to do
Well,
so.
why don't we just do it instead of talking about it? Let's just do it.
Okay,
I make a motion to Bob Marshall, we chair.
I
All
would
right.
second that.
and we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Tom,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Bob, aye. Okay,
I make a motion that Tom Saragona be vice chair.
second. Discussion? All those in favor, Tom,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Bob, aye. I move that Walter continue as secretary.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? Tom,
Aye, and thank you for doing what you do, Walter.
yes, indeed. Walter, your vote?
Aye.
And Bob, aye. Okay, so we are reorganized, or at least organized. All right, the minutes. Fudge. I didn't-
November 4th.
Yes, from November 4th, but I didn't print them up to have them in front of me here, but I did send them to you. Is there
You look
any,
good.
yeah. Is there any discussion of that?
Well, I make a motion to accept the minutes from November 4th.
I'll
Okay.
second that, yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, Tom,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Bob, aye. And we also have on there on the agenda from 11:29.
I'll make a motion to accept the November 29th.
Okay,
Second.
Tom,
Minutes.
Second.
Tom seconded. Discussion? All right, Tom, you're
Aye. Aye.
aye, Walter,
Aye.
Bob, aye, very good, okay. Okay, the Comcast cleanup, the third item on the agenda. I have to get in touch with Mike to find out what the status is. And I've got a note here to email Mike to find that out, and I will. Any other discussions about Comcast?
So this is, excuse me. So Mike Gala is supposed to send us back a clean copy
Yes,
of it with Comcast approval or
yes,
with a Comcast approval? Okay.
right. What has happened, Walter, is our board of, or our select board has signed it. They sent it to Bill August for his signature because Bill put a line in there for his signature. He signed it and then he scanned it and sent it to Mike,
Okay.
which is the same as sending it to Comcast. And where it sits at this point, I don't know.
Right.
And that's what we need to find out.
Okay. That's
Okay,
fine.
very good. Will do. All right. And number 5, we've already discussed. I was pleased to hear that Bill agreed with me that the brevity of time between now and the expiration date of May 4 of next year, 2023, that he doesn't think it's a good idea that we go along with what Neil Connors, their rep, has said to me, that they want to leave it till the 3rd or 4th quarter of this year. I don't think that's a wise idea, given the experience that we had with Comcast, and also what I mentioned earlier. When we say, okay, we're meeting today, and let's say Neil Connors is on here, and the Verizon attorneys and Bill and so forth, and we've got some issues, and so needs to look into something, they have to do some research, and we want to get back. And they might say, well, let's have a meeting in a week or 2 weeks. Well, let's say it takes 10 days for whoever to get the information. Maybe it's us, maybe it's them. And then they get back to me and I can't, it's got to be extended a week further before we can meet the time deadlines. So my concern is that the time we've got between now and expiration is going to evaporate more quickly than they are willing to agree to. And I do not want to be squeezed at the last minute, the last few months, to accept a license to recommend to the selectmen. I don't want to be any part of that, Tom.
I've been just thinking about that, and I can understand Verizon's standpoint that they have a lot on their plate right now. But I would think that at the very minimum, we should hit the ground running 12 months before expiration.
Yeah.
At the very minimum.
Yeah.
Because we don't meet every day. I mean, and it takes time to go through these
It does.
contracts. So,
Right.
I mean, I think we could get real serious about it if we don't get a lot accomplished by 12 months before.
Right.
I think it's just a Verizon strategy to squeeze us, squeeze any town.
Right. I would agree, Walter.
It's just their strategy, so we don't have to deal with their strategy. We just go ahead and get ready.
Speaking of,
And we could tell them we're ready to go.
right. Speaking of negotiations, guys, and one thing I didn't address in reorganization, if we can go back to that, we have been working, negotiating with Comcast with a subcommittee of less than a quorum. Is that something that we want to consider continuing?
I would recommend less than a quorum.
Oh, yeah. Well, I negotiating in open meeting, I don't think is a wise idea in any way,
No.
shape, or form.
I have no objection to serving on a subcommittee if you wish.
Very good.
Mm.
Walt, does that seem okay to you?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be able to keep up with you guys with that.
Okay. You'd be
um,
surprised what you can
do we
keep up with when you have to.
Yeah. Well, I am
Well-
hoping that things go a lot smoother and
Yeah.
now that we've got a little more experience.
Your
We
lips to the
have it.
cable god's ear.
Yeah.
I think you've already identified the major issues that are going to be coming up. I mean, you
Right,
have some
right.
language issues, but the real major issue of 5 to
Right.
10 years and the issue around money, I mean, those are the two things that Verizon's going to be, a stickler about.
I
And
love
they may
the
be
idea of a 10-year.
Yeah.
All right,
Um,
then if you
okay.
guys are in agreement, then I'm gonna name Tom to the negotiating subcommittee for Verizon, and he and I will act in that capacity. And Jose, as always, you'll be invited to attend as a non-member of the committee, but as our technical advisor. You've been a great help to us, and we'd like to continue to have you on board.
Of course, if Walter or Fred, would love to sit in on a subcommittee meeting, they're always welcome, of course, right?
Well, they can, except that you would, or I would not be able to be part of that, because then we'd be a quorum.
Oh, I
And
understand. Okay.
it would be an open meeting then, and it would defeat the purpose.
I retract that.
Yeah, well, we all have our moments, Tom. I have mine, that's for darn sure. Okay, so we're gonna move forward with that, and I think, guys, other than going over more of these items on the list that I came out with, I think that's probably it. I need to go over these again and clean them up.
Yeah.
Because, Tom, you brought something out to me that
Yeah.
when I'm talking about reports that we don't get, I did not read in those areas that we had to make the request. I saw it in some places.
In some cases, it was in the next paragraph where they
Ah.
said upon request, So
Okay.
you might have missed that because of that.
Yeah, well, let me try to clean this up a little bit, and I'll try to come up with something a little bit shorter and more more easily read and understood.
That would be great. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Other than that, guys, anything else we want to discuss that was on the agenda?
No, I was just gonna say the next meeting date sometime like the first week in February.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Yeah.
Would that be enough time for you to clean up and then send it
Oh,
out?
yes. Now, I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Well, that's okay. I'm just recommending the first week in February, so, wherever that is, the first Tuesday in February.
Yeah, Tuesdays likely aren't gonna work for me.
Okay,
I
well,
think-
whatever.
I think maybe we were meeting, I think, on Wednesdays toward the end there. That works better for me. I don't know if it is a problem for you.
Nope.
Tom, what do you think? Generally a Wednesday? Tom, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I said I'm flexible. I'm easy to work
Okay.
with.
All
Yeah,
right.
same,
Okay,
same.
Same here.
Okay, super. All right, guys,
Need an
and
adjournment.
we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second
Second,
discussion? Thank you, gentlemen. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bob, aye. Tom, aye. Walter, your vote on adjournment?
Aye, 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
all
Thank
right.
you, Jose.